Today I'm going to show you how to make this bread bag. I know a lot of us are in unusual circumstances at the moment. Certainly me, I've been making way too much bread and then realising I had nowhere to put it. So this is made out of hopefully things that most people that do crafting and sewing may well have at home. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, carry on watching.
So for this project you'll need some form of cotton type fabric, something that can be washed because you're going to be putting food in this. So a piece of upholstery fabric or some nice quilting fabric. You'll also need something to tie it with. I spent ages looking around for grosgrain ribbon. You could always make a tie out of the same fabric if you haven't got some pretty ribbon or something. You'll also need things to measure and cut: a biro, a pair of scissors, 2 pairs of scissors apparently, a rotary cutter, some pins and a sewing machine. You can do this project by hand. If you don't have one or you're not confident with one, go right ahead and do it by hand. So the first thing you need to do is to square up your fabric. Because we're making a bag, you need to make sure that the fabric is true before you start measuring. If you've got a wavy line and you measure from that, then the whole thing will be out. The measurements that I used for this bag are 18 inches by 14, and the reason why I'm measuring the longest measurement across the fabric like this is so that we can have the back seam in the middle. Once you've done your measuring, you can use a biro to mark it. Any markings will be covered up by the seam allowance. And here's me using the rotary cutter. If you don't like using a rotary cutter, it's great for straight lines, but you can use scissors. It's fairly easy with a decent pair of scissors to follow the grain line of the fabric. Next, you need to measure the width of the fabric, which is 14 inches. And this is double, so you keep the loop of the fabric, if you see what I mean. So it stays one piece all the time. Then cut that piece out. Next, you need to take whatever you're using to tie the bag, the finished bag, you need to measure 3 times across the width of the bag, and that will ensure that you've got ample to tie the bag closed. And the microphone nearly fell over.
And then if you're using something like grosgrain ribbon, you must snip the end off like that. And then what I did was I folded it, and then I'm going to tie a little knot in the end, and then I'm going to do that again on the other end.
When you've done your tie, you need to measure about 4.5 inches from what will be the top to allow space to make a nice fold. Make a little mark on the seam and pin the tie in.
Pin all the way along here. The reason why I've just flipped it over like that is when you go to the machine, you always want the bulk of the fabric to the left. So the thing I need to show is this inside here. We need to make sure this doesn't get caught in any of the sewing. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to coil it up a bit like a pin curl, and then I'm just going to put a oh, that's attractive. Okay, let's use this one instead. It's less horrible. So I'm just going to put a safety pin around it just to stop it getting caught up in the sewing. So now it's sort of coiled out of the way in there.
Okay, thread up your machine, ready to start sewing. I would be interested in doing a get to know your sewing machine. If anyone would like to see that, you can always pop a comment down below. Then sew up your first seam. We're using a straight stitch, and about 1/2 inch from the outside edge, or 5/8 of an inch. That's the marking on your sewing machine, I think was what's the marking on mine anyway.
Sewing machine really does sound like a tractor. Anyone that knows me knows that all my machines end up sounding like tractors.
After you've done the first straight stitch, you want to zigzag along the raw edge to make it nice and neat. We don't want, bits coming off on this. To give it a good iron, make sure it's nice and flat. I mean, really you should iron it to start with, but
I don't want to put a firm line in there, you'll see why. So I'm just going to go to the edge here. I'm just giving it a little bit of a press. Because what we're going to do is we're going to make the bottom seam, we're going to find the halfway point. The back seam is there, which means that the tie goes around the front. Actually, I might turn it out the other way and iron it first. There we go. So just turn that through. So I'm just gonna press there. That's what I'm gonna do. And we're gonna turn it back through the other way. Do not lose sight of where the top is. So the top's where our mark is. So if we stitch this up by mistake, you end up with a bag that big. That would not be good. Make sure this is vaguely in the middle. Now I'm going to pin this ready to sew up. Now it's ready to sew up.
So take your piece back to the sewing machine and stitch along the bottom using a straight stitch, and then zigzag along the raw edge, and also while you're at the machine zigzag around what is the top, so you get rid of that raw edge, ready for the next bit of sewing.
So we're going to fold this bit down about 2 inches, whatever that looks like. So yeah, about 2 inches. Brilliant.
Here there's more footage of me professionally ironing. Anyone that knows me knows that I only iron fabric projects.
And then just because it's a double piece of fabric now, I will pin it because it has a tendency to roll on the machine.
Can I just say, in real life, I wouldn't pin that edge, but if it makes you feel more secure, go right ahead, because I find that when you take the sleeve part off on the machine, that it actually flicks the pins out, so you can see it in the footage actually.
Trim off all the loose bits because this is going near food and you don't want loose thread in your bread.
Oh, my lovely snippers. I love those snippers. We sell those in my shop. They're so nice. I did a hilarious thing actually with the snippers when I put them on Instagram to show that we sold them. I managed to make them look like the sort of thing you shear sheep with. Anyway, this is the final bit. We're turning the bag the right side out.
Undo your safety pin. Managed not to stitch that in, so that's excellent.
That's the end of the making. So this is the finished bread bag, complete with a loaf of sourdough bread that I made myself. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe. You can also follow me and my shop on Instagram. Can I just give a shout out to my son as well for doing all the filming and sound recording. So thanks, Will. We'll be uploading hopefully once a week for the foreseeable future. Come back and see us soon.